In the distant future, humanity had spread far beyond Earth, reaching planets and moons that once seemed unreachable. The stars were no longer just points of light in the night sky, but destinations for exploration, trade, and sometimes war. Among the countless species humans encountered in their journey through the galaxy, many were peaceful, eager to share knowledge or resources. But others were hostile, seeing humanity as invaders or threats to their way of life. Over time, these conflicts became more frequent, and humanity needed a way to protect itself. That need led to the creation of Erebus. Erebus was not just any weapon, it was a suit of armor unlike anything ever built before. Standing at over 8 feet tall when fully activated, the armor was sleek and black, with glowing blue lines running along its surface like veins. It was designed to be both a fortress and a weapon, capable of adapting to any situation. Its outer layer could withstand energy blasts, physical attacks, and even extreme temperatures. Inside, the operator was surrounded by advanced systems that monitored their health, boosted their strength, and provided real-time analysis of the battlefield. But what truly set Erebus apart was its artificial intelligence. The AI was programmed to learn from every encounter, constantly improving its strategies and tactics. It could predict an enemy's next move, counteract unfamiliar weapons, and even repair damage to itself during combat. The man chosen to pilot Erebus was Ethan Cole. Ethan wasn't picked because he was extraordinary or famous. In fact, he was quite ordinary in many ways. He grew up on a small farming colony near the edge of human-controlled space, where life was simple and hard work was a daily necessity. As a child, he dreamed of adventure among the stars, but reality forced him to focus on survival. When he turned 18, he joined the military, hoping to leave his old life behind. What he found instead was a brutal series of battles against alien forces. Ethan proved himself to be a skilled fighter, someone who could stay calm under pressure and think quickly in dangerous situations. His superiors noticed this, and when the call went out for candidates to test Erebus, Ethan was one of the few selected. Training to use Erebus was not easy. The armor was powerful, but controlling it required precision and discipline. Ethan spent months learning how to synchronize his movements with the AI, practicing everything from basic walking to complex combat maneuvers. At first, the process was frustrating. The armor responded too slowly or it misinterpreted his intentions, leading to clumsy mistakes. But as time passed, Ethan began to understand how the system worked. He learned to trust the AI, allowing it to guide him while still maintaining control. By the end of his training, Ethan felt like Erebus was an extension of his own body, a second skin that amplified his abilities. Once Ethan was ready, Erebus was deployed in battle for the first time. The mission took place on a desert planet called Krylos, home to a race of insectoid creatures known as the Zarniths. These aliens were aggressive and territorial, attacking any outsiders who ventured too close to their nests. A group of human settlers had recently established a mining operation on Krylos, unaware of the danger they were in. When the Zarniths attacked, the settlers sent out a distress signal, and Erebus was sent to respond. Ethan stepped onto the battlefield, inside Erebus feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The Zarniths swarmed toward him, their razor-sharp claws glinting in the sunlight. They moved quickly, leaping and darting around him in chaotic patterns. For a moment, Ethan hesitated, unsure if the armor could handle such a large number of enemies. Then the AI kicked in, analyzing the situation and suggesting the best course of action. With a single command, Ethan activated the armor's plasma cannons, sending bursts of energy into the swarm. The Zarniths fell back, screeching, in pain, but they didn't retreat completely. Instead, they regrouped and launched another attack, this time targeting the armor's joints and weak points. But Erebus was prepared. Its adaptive systems detected the change in strategy and adjusted accordingly. Reinforced plates slid into place to protect vulnerable areas, while automated turrets emerged from the armor's shoulders, firing non-stop at the advancing insects. Ethan moved forward, smashing through the Zarniths with powerful punches and kicks. Each blow sent shockwaves rippling through the ground, scattering the smaller creatures. Within minutes, the battlefield was clear, and the surviving Zarniths fled into the dunes. Word of Erebus's success spread quickly. Military leaders hailed it as a breakthrough, proof that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with even the most dangerous alien species. More missions followed, each one presenting new challenges. On a frozen moon inhabited by gelatinous predators, Erebus used heat-based weapons to melt through icy terrain and eliminate threats lurking beneath the surface. On a jungle world filled with venomous plants and carnivorous beasts, the armor's sensors identified toxic substances and neutralized them before they could harm Ethan. No matter the environment or the enemy, Erebus adapted, proving itself to be nearly unstoppable. As the victories piled up, Ethan became something of a legend. People talked about him in hushed tones, referring to him as the man inside the machine. Some believed he was invincible, a hero who could do no wrong. Others saw him as a symbol of human progress, proof that technology could overcome any obstacle. But Ethan himself didn't feel like a hero. To him, the battles were just part of his job, something he did because he had been trained to do it. He rarely thought about the lives he saved or the enemies he defeated. All that mattered was completing the mission and making it back alive. Despite his modesty, Ethan couldn't deny the impact Erebus had on the galaxy. Entire civilizations looked to humanity with newfound respect or fear because of the armor's reputation. Diplomats used Erebus as leverage in negotiations, threatening to deploy it if agreements weren't met. Scientists studied its design, hoping to replicate its success in other fields. Even artists drew inspiration from it, creating paintings and sculptures that depicted the towering black figure standing victorious over alien foes. Yet for all its achievements, Erebus had never faced one particular kind of opponent: another human. This fact weighed heavily on some people's minds, though few dared to say it aloud. Could the armor really be considered unbeatable if it hadn't been tested against its creators? What would happen if someone with intimate knowledge of Erebus decided to turn it against humanity? These questions lingered in the background, unspoken but always present. For now, however, Ethan focused on his duties. He continued to carry out missions, traveling from one corner of the galaxy to another, facing whatever challenges came his way. Each victory added to Erebus's legend, solidifying its status as humanity's greatest weapon. But deep down, Ethan wondered how long the streak would last. Sooner or later, something or someone would come along that the armor couldn't handle. And when that day arrived, Ethan knew he would have to be ready. Until then, the battles continued, and Erebus remained undefeated. The mining colony of Delta 7 was supposed to be a quiet assignment. Located on the edge of human-controlled space, it was a small outpost dedicated to extracting rare minerals from the planet's rocky surface. The miners who worked there lived simple lives, focused on their jobs and the promise of better days ahead. But recently, things had taken a turn for the worse. Equipment began malfunctioning without explanation. Supplies disappeared overnight. Entire sections of the facility were found damaged or unusable. At first, the colonists thought it was just bad luck or technical issues. But as the incidents grew more frequent and severe, fear started to spread. Surveillance cameras captured glimpses of a figure moving through the colony at night. Whoever it was, they moved with purpose, avoiding detection whenever possible. The colonists tried to investigate, but every attempt ended in failure. Whoever, or whatever, was causing the chaos seemed to know the layout of the facility perfectly. Some speculated that it might be an alien intruder, perhaps a scout sent by one of humanity's many enemies. Others believed it could be rogue AI systems gone haywire. No one suspected the truth. The saboteur was human. Command decided to send Ethan Cole and Erebus to Delta 7. News of the disturbances had reached high levels of authority, and the decision was made to deploy humanity's most reliable weapon. Ethan received his orders while stationed on a nearby military base. He reviewed the details of the mission, which included grainy footage of the mysterious figure and reports from the colonists. Something about the situation felt off to him, though he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Still, He didn't question the assignment. It was his job to handle problems like this, and Erebus had never failed him before. When Ethan arrived at Delta 7, the atmosphere was tense. The colonists greeted him with a mix of relief and apprehension. They were grateful for the help, but wary of what Erebus might do. The armor's reputation preceded it, and some people viewed it as more machine than man. Ethan did his best to reassure them, explaining that his goal was to resolve the issue quickly and safely. Once inside the colony, he activated Erebus's scanning systems, searching for signs of the intruder. The armor's sensors swept through the darkened corridors, detecting heat signatures, energy fluctuations, and structural weaknesses. Yet, nothing unusual appeared. Whoever was behind the sabotage knew how to stay hidden. Ethan spent hours patrolling the facility, checking every room and passageway. The longer he searched, the more frustrated he became. Erebus was designed to adapt to any situation, but this time, it seemed powerless. The enemy wasn't attacking directly. They were playing a game of cat and mouse, staying just out of reach. Ethan began to suspect that the saboteur wasn't an alien or a machine. There was intelligence behind the actions, a deliberate effort to avoid confrontation. It reminded him of something, or someone, he couldn't quite place. It wasn't until late into the second day of his search that Ethan finally encountered her. He was walking through a ruined control room when he heard a faint noise behind him. Turning quickly, he saw a woman standing in the shadows. She was tall and slender, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. In one hand, she held a small device that glowed faintly in the dim light. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. Ethan took a step forward, raising his armored arms slightly. "Who are you?" he asked. "What are you doing here?" "My name is Lily Monroe," she replied, "and I'm here to show you that your precious armor isn't as invincible as everyone thinks." Her words struck a nerve. Ethan had heard similar claims before, usually from enemies trying to intimidate him. But there was something different about Lily. She didn't sound angry or afraid. Instead, she seemed almost determined, as if she had a purpose beyond mere destruction. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked cautiously. "This armor has defeated every threat it's faced. Why should you be any different?" Lily smiled faintly, as if amused by his confidence. "Because I know how it works," she said. "Better than anyone else, including you." Ethan frowned. "That's impossible. Only a handful of people have access to Erebus's design plans. You're not one of them." "Not anymore," Lily admitted. "But I used to be. I worked on the original team that created Erebus until they decided they didn't need me anymore." Her tone carried a hint of bitterness but also a sense of pride. Ethan realized that she wasn't lying. If she had been part of the team that built Erebus, she would have intimate knowledge of its systems. That explained how she had managed to evade detection for so long. But it still didn't answer the bigger question. Why was she doing this? "Why are you sabotaging the colony?" Ethan demanded. "What do you hope to accomplish?" "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," Lily said. "I'm trying to prove a point. Humanity relies too much on machines like Erebus. You think technology can solve all your problems, but you forget what makes us strong. It's not weapons or armor. It's our ability to think, to adapt, to change. Erebus is just a tool, but people treat it like a god. I want to show them that it's not infallible." Ethan hesitated. Her argument made sense in a way. He had seen firsthand how much humanity depended on technology, both in battle and in everyday life. But that didn't justify her actions. Sabotaging the colony put innocent lives at risk, and no amount of philosophy could excuse that. "You don't have to do this," he said. "If you have concerns about Erebus, we can talk about them. Find another way to make your point." "There is no other way," Lily replied. "People won't listen unless they see the truth for themselves, and I'm going to make sure they see it." Before Ethan could respond, Lily pressed a button on the device in her hand. A low hum filled the air as the lights in the control room flickered and died. Erebus's systems began to malfunction, alarms blaring inside the helmet. Ethan tried to move, but the armor froze in place. locked down by some kind of override signal. Panic surged through him as he realized what was happening. Lily had hacked into Erebus using her knowledge of its design to disable it. For several seconds, Ethan was trapped, unable to act. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the interference stopped. The armor rebooted, its systems coming back, online. Ethan stepped forward, ready to confront Lily again, but she was already gone, disappearing into the shadows as silently as she had appeared. Frustrated and confused, Ethan returned to the main part of the colony to regroup. He contacted command, reporting what had happened and requesting additional support. But deep down he knew this was a fight he would have to face alone. Lily wasn't like any opponent he had encountered before. She wasn't driven by greed or hatred. She was motivated by conviction, and that made her far more dangerous. Over the next few hours, Ethan reviewed everything he knew about Lily Monroe. Records showed that she had indeed been part of the team that developed Erebus, specializing in its AI programming. Her work had been groundbreaking, earning praise from her colleagues. But then, without warning, she had left the project. Rumors suggested that she had clashed with higher-ups over ethical concerns, though nothing was ever confirmed. After leaving, she vanished from public view, dropping off the grid entirely. Now, years later, she had resurfaced, determined to expose the flaws in her own creation. As Ethan prepared for the next phase of the mission, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change everything. Up until now, Erebus had been undefeated, a symbol of human ingenuity and strength. But Lily had shown him that even the most advanced technology had limits. The real question was whether Ethan could overcome those limits, and himself, to stop her. Ethan knew the next phase of the mission would be unlike anything he had faced before. Lily Monroe wasn't just another enemy. She was a ghost, slipping through shadows and striking where least expected. Her knowledge of Erebus gave her an edge that no alien or machine could match. Every step Ethan took felt heavier, not because of the armor, but because of the weight of uncertainty. For the first time in his career, he doubted whether Erebus alone could get the job done. The colony's layout worked against him. Delta 7 was a maze of narrow corridors, low ceilings, and dimly lit rooms. The miners had built it to maximize efficiency, not to accommodate massive suits of armor. Erebus's bulk made it difficult to navigate the tight spaces, and Lily seemed to know this. She led Ethan deeper into the facility, always staying one step ahead. Each time he thought he was closing in on her, she disappeared again, leaving behind only hints of her presence, a faint hum from a deactivated console, a flicker of movement caught on camera, or a whispered taunt over the comms. Lily's tactics were relentless. She didn't engage directly, but instead targeted Erebus's systems piece by piece. First, she disabled its long-range scanners, forcing Ethan to rely on visual confirmation. Then she disrupted its communication link with command, cutting him off from support. As the hours dragged on, more of the armor's functions began to fail. Its plasma cannons overheated after firing only a few shots. Its defensive shields flickered and died. Even the AI, which had always been a reliable ally, started making mistakes, misinterpreting data and offering flawed advice. Ethan tried to adapt, using what remained of Erebus's capabilities to track Lily down. But the armor's limitations forced him to think differently. He couldn't charge ahead recklessly as he normally would. Instead, he had to plan every move carefully. At one point, he found himself crawling through a ventilation shaft, something Erebus hadn't been designed for. The metal walls groaned under the weight of the armor, threatening to collapse at any moment. Sweat dripped down Ethan's face as he inched forward, knowing that one wrong move could trap him inside. When he finally emerged into a large storage room, he saw her waiting for him. Lily stood near a stack of crates, holding another glowing device in her hand. Her expression was calm, almost serene, as if she had been expecting him all along. "You're persistent," she said. "I'll give you that." Ethan raised his armored fists, ready to strike. "This ends now," he growled. "Whatever you're trying to prove, it stops here." Lily shook her head. "No, Ethan. This is just the beginning. You haven't seen anything yet." Before he could respond, she activated the device. A surge of energy coursed through the room, sending sparks flying from nearby machinery. Erebus staggered, its systems overwhelmed by the interference. Ethan fought to keep control, but the armor's movements became sluggish and unresponsive. Frustrated, he ejected from the cockpit, stepping out onto the cold floor in his standard-issue combat suit. It was a risky move. Without the protection of the armor, he was vulnerable. But he realized he had no other choice. Lily watched him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. "So you're willing to fight me on your own terms," she said. "Good. I was starting to wonder if you'd ever take off that tin can." "I'm not afraid of you," Ethan replied, though his voice betrayed a hint of doubt. Without Erebus, he felt exposed, like a soldier stripped of their weapon. But he reminded himself that he had survived countless battles before donning the armor. If he wanted to win, he would have to rely on his instincts and experience. The two circled each other cautiously, neither making the first move. The room was silent except for the faint hum of machinery and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. Ethan studied Lily, searching for weaknesses. She was unarmed, aside from the device in her hand, but her confidence suggested she had other tricks up her sleeve. He needed to stay alert. Finally, Ethan lunged forward, aiming for the device. If he could disable it, he might restore Erebus's functionality and turn the tide of the battle. But Lily sidestepped him effortlessly, moving with surprising speed. She pressed a button on the device, causing a section of the wall to collapse, blocking his path. Dust filled the air, obscuring his vision. By the time it cleared, she was gone again. Frustration boiled inside Ethan, but he forced himself to stay focused. He retraced his steps, following the trail of destruction Lily had left behind. Along the way, he noticed subtle clues: a scuff, mark on the floor, a loose wire dangling from the ceiling that hinted at her next destination. Slowly but surely, he pieced together her plan. She wasn't just disabling Erebus. She was dismantling the entire colony, piece by piece. If he didn't stop her soon, there might not be anything left to save. Ethan eventually tracked her to the colony's main power core, a massive chamber filled with humming generators and pulsating conduits. Lily stood in the center of the room, surrounded by a web of wires and gadgets. Her device was connected to the core, feeding off its energy to amplify its effects. "Impressive, isn't it?" she said when she saw him enter. "With this, I can shut down every system in the colony. And Erebus, too." "You're destroying everything," Ethan said, his voice rising. "The miners, the equipment, the infrastructure. Do you even care about the damage you're causing?" "I care about making people see the truth," Lily shot back. "Erebus isn't a savior. It's a crutch. Humanity relies on it so much that they've forgotten how to solve problems themselves. If I have to tear this place apart to prove that, then so be it." Ethan clenched his fists. "There are better ways to make your point. You don't have to destroy lives to get your message across." "Maybe," Lily admitted, "but desperate times call for desperate measures." Without warning, she activated the device again, unleashing a wave of electromagnetic energy that sent Ethan sprawling to the ground. The lights in the chamber flickered wildly, and the generators roared as they struggled to contain the surge. Sparks flew from the walls and the air grew thick with heat. Ethan scrambled to his feet, dodging falling debris as he closed the distance between them. He tackled Lily to the ground, knocking the device from her grasp. It skidded across the floor, coming to rest near the edge of the power core. For a brief moment, they wrestled on the floor, each trying to gain the upper hand. Despite her intelligence, Lily lacked the physical strength to overpower Ethan. He managed to pin her down, holding her arms firmly against the ground. "It's over," he said, breathing heavily. "You've made your point. Now let's fix this before it gets worse." To his surprise, Lily stopped struggling. Her eyes softened and she nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Let's fix it." Together, they retrieved the device and disconnected it from the power core. The chaos subsided, and the generators returned to their normal rhythm. Ethan helped Lily to her feet, both of them covered in dirt and sweat. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the tension between them easing slightly. You knew how to stop me all along, Lily said. Why didn't you kill me when you had the chance? Because I'm not like you, Ethan replied. I don't believe in destroying lives to make a point. There's still hope for us to change without tearing everything down. Lily looked away, her expression unreadable. Maybe you're right, she murmured. But don't think this means I'm giving up. People need to hear what I have to say. And they will, Ethan assured her. But not like this. Not through fear and destruction. As they worked together to stabilize the colony's systems, Ethan couldn't help but reflect on the battle. It had tested him in ways he never imagined, forcing him to confront his dependence on Erebus and rediscover his own strength. In the end, it wasn't the armor that won the day, it was him. And perhaps that was the lesson Lily had been trying to teach all along. After the chaos in the power core, Ethan and Lily worked side by side to repair the damage. The colony's systems were fragile, and every second counted. If they didn't act quickly, the entire facility could collapse. Together, they rerouted power lines, stabilized the generators, and reset the automated systems that kept the air breathable and the lights on. It was strange for Ethan to see Lily so focused, her earlier defiance replaced by a quiet determination. She moved with precision, her hands steady as she adjusted wires and calibrated controls. For someone who had caused so much destruction, she seemed oddly skilled at putting things back together. As they worked, Ethan couldn't help but ask questions. Why did you do all this? He asked. You could have just talked to people, shared your ideas. You didn't have to sabotage the colony. Lily paused, her fingers hovering over a panel of blinking lights. Would anyone have listened? She asked quietly. People don't want to hear bad news about their favorite toys. Erebus isn't just a weapon, it's a symbol. To most, it represents human progress, strength, and dominance. Telling them it's flawed would be like telling them humanity is flawed. But breaking things doesn't make your point any clearer, Ethan countered. It just makes people angry. I know, Lily admitted. And maybe I went too far. But I wanted to show what happens when we rely too much on machines. They can fail, Ethan, they always fail eventually. And when they do, we're left scrambling to pick up the pieces. Ethan nodded slowly. He understood her frustration, even if he didn't agree with her methods. Over the years, he had seen how dependent humanity had become on technology. From farming drones to starship navigation systems, machines did the work that once required human effort. Erebus was no exception. It was powerful, yes, but it wasn't perfect. Ethan had known that all along, but he hadn't realized how much he relied on it until Lily forced him to fight without it. By the time they finished repairing the colony, the sun was rising outside. Light streamed through the windows, illuminating the dusty corridors and battered equipment. The miners began to emerge from hiding, cautiously returning to their routines. They looked at Ethan and Lily with a mix of fear and gratitude, unsure whether to thank them or blame them for the ordeal. Ethan tried to explain what had happened, but his words felt hollow. How could he justify the destruction Lily had caused? How could he convince them that her actions, though extreme, had a purpose? Lily didn't stay long after the repairs were done. She gathered her tools and the remnants of her device, slipping away before anyone could stop her. Ethan watched her go, torn between duty and understanding. Part of him wanted to arrest her, to hold her accountable for the damage she had done, but another part of him knew that wouldn't solve anything. Lily wasn't just a criminal. She was a voice crying out in the wilderness, demanding attention. Arresting her wouldn't silence that voice, it would only amplify it. When Command contacted Ethan later that day, he gave them a full report. He described the battle with Lily, her knowledge of Erebus, and her reasons for sabotaging the colony. He didn't sugarcoat anything, knowing that honesty was the only way to address the situation. To his surprise, Command didn't order him to pursue her. Instead, they asked him to reflect on what had happened and consider how humanity could move forward. In the days that followed, Ethan returned to Earth. The journey gave him time to think, to process everything that had transpired on Delta 7. He replayed the battle in his mind, analyzing every decision he had made, He thought about Lily's arguments, her warnings about humanity's reliance on machines. And he thought about Erebus, the armor that had carried him through countless victories but had ultimately failed him when it mattered most. Back on Earth, Ethan found himself facing tough questions. Journalists hounded him for interviews, eager to learn more about the woman who had defeated Erebus. Military leaders called meetings to discuss the implications of Lily's actions. Some saw her as a threat, someone who needed to be stopped, at all costs. Others viewed her as a wake-up call, a reminder that humanity couldn't afford to grow complacent. Ethan attended these discussions, sharing his perspective but avoiding judgment. He didn't claim to have all the answers, nor did he defend Lily's methods. Instead, he urged people to think critically about their relationship with technology. Machines are tools, he said during one meeting. They're meant to help us, not replace us. We need to remember that. Otherwise, we risk losing sight of what makes us human. His words resonated with some, sparking debates across the globe. Scientists began researching ways to improve AI systems, ensuring they remained under human control. Engineers redesigned certain technologies to prioritize safety and ethics. Even artists joined the conversation, creating works that explored themes of dependence and resilience. Slowly but surely, the world began to change, not because of Lily's sabotage, but because of the questions it raised. Meanwhile, Lily disappeared into the stars. No one knew where she went or what she planned to do next. Some speculated that she continued her mission, traveling from planet to spread her message. Others believed she had grown tired of fighting and sought solitude instead. Whatever her fate, her actions left a lasting impact. People started questioning the role of technology in their lives, challenging the assumption that machines could solve every problem. It was a small shift perhaps, but an important one. For Ethan, life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such an experience. He resumed his duties, piloting Erebus on missions across the galaxy. But he approached his work differently. Now, he no longer saw the armor as invincible or infallible. Instead, he viewed it as a partner, something to augment his abilities rather than define them. He trained harder, honing his skills so he could operate effectively, even without the armor's assistance. And he encouraged others to do the same, reminding them that true strength came from within. Years passed, and Erebus continued to serve humanity faithfully. Its reputation as an unbeatable weapon endured, though people now recognized its limitations. The lessons learned from Delta 7 became part of the collective consciousness, shaping the way humanity interacted with technology. Machines remained essential, but they no longer overshadowed the human spirit. As for Ethan, he often thought about Lily. He wondered if she ever regretted her choices, if she ever wished she had taken a different path. He hoped she was safe wherever she was, and that she found peace. Though their encounter had been brief, it had changed him forever. It had taught him humility, adaptability, and the importance of balance. Most importantly, it had reminded him that while machines could enhance human potential, they could never replace it. One evening, as Ethan stood on a hill overlooking the city, he reflected on how far humanity had come. The skyline was a tapestry of lights, each one representing progress and possibility. But beyond the glow of technology lay something more profound: the resilience and ingenuity of the human spirit. That, Ethan realized, was the true source of strength. And it was something no machine, not even Erebus, could ever replicate. With that thought, Ethan turned and walked away, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan's return to active duty was quieter than he expected. After the events on Delta 7, Command decided not to deploy him immediately. Instead, they assigned him to a training facility on Earth, where new recruits were being prepared for missions involving advanced technology like Erebus. At first, Ethan wasn't sure how to feel about the change. He had spent years in the field facing enemies and solving problems head-on. Teaching others felt unfamiliar, almost foreign. But as time passed, he began to see the value in his new, or his comicker. The recruits were young and eager, their eyes wide with excitement at the prospect of piloting something as legendary as Erebus. Many of them idolized Ethan, seeing him as a hero who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. They hung on his every word, asking endless questions about his battles and the armor itself. Ethan did his best to answer honestly, sharing stories from his past while emphasizing the importance of caution and preparation. One day, during a training exercise, a recruit named Ryan asked a question that caught Ethan off guard. "Sir," Ryan said hesitantly, "is it true that Erebus was defeated by a human?" The room fell silent. The other recruits looked at Ethan expectantly, waiting for his response. For a moment, he considered brushing the question aside or giving a vague answer. But then he realized this was an opportunity, a chance to teach them something important. "Yes," Ethan admitted. "Erebus was defeated by a human. Her name was Lily Monroe." The recruits exchanged glances, surprised by his honesty. One of them raised their hand. "How could that happen, sir? Isn't Erebus supposed to be unbeatable?" Ethan smiled faintly. "That's what everyone thought, including me. But here's the thing. No machine is truly unbeatable. Erebus is powerful, yes, but it's only as good as the person operating it. And sometimes even the best tools can fail if you're not careful." He went on to explain what had happened on Delta 7, leaving out some details but sticking to the truth. He told them about Lily's sabotage, her knowledge of Erebus's design, and the battle that forced him to fight without the armor. The recruits listened intently, their admiration for Ethan growing as they realized how much he had learned from the experience. "What happened to her?" another recruit asked. "I don't know," Ethan replied. "She disappeared after we fixed the colony. Some people think she's still out there spreading her message. Others believe she's moved on. Either way, she made us rethink how we use technology. And that's something worth remembering." The conversation stayed with Ethan long after the training session ended. It reminded him of the ripple effect Lily's actions had created. Her sabotage hadn't just affected Delta 7. It had sparked a global discussion about humanity's reliance on machines. People were beginning to ask tough questions, challenging assumptions they had taken for granted. Even the recruits, fresh-faced and inexperienced, were starting to understand the importance of balance between man and machine. As weeks turned into months, Ethan found himself growing more comfortable in his role as a mentor. He enjoyed watching the recruits develop their skills, guiding them through challenges and helping them overcome obstacles. They weren't perfect, far from it, but they showed potential, and that gave him hope. Still, there were moments when Ethan wondered about Lily. Where was she now? Was she continuing her mission, or had she found peace somewhere far away? He didn't know, and perhaps he never would. But he couldn't deny the impact she had made, not just on him, but on the entire galaxy. One evening, as Ethan walked through the training facility, he overheard two recruits talking in hushed tones. Curious, he paused near the doorway, listening without meaning to eavesdrop. "Do you think we'll ever face someone like Lily?" one of them asked. "I hope not," the other replied. "Can you imagine fighting someone who knows everything about your gear? That would be terrifying." The first recruit nodded. "Yeah, but also kinda cool. I mean, if we could beat someone like that, it would prove we're stronger than any machine." Ethan smiled to himself. The recruits were learning faster than he realized. They understood that victory didn't come from relying solely on technology. It came from combining it with human ingenuity and determination. That was the lesson Lily had tried to teach, and now it was spreading, one person at a time. A few days later, Ethan received unexpected news. Command had approved a special assignment for him, one that would take him back into space. The details were sparse, but the mission involved investigating reports of unusual activity near the edge of human-controlled territory. Some believed it might be connected to Lily, though no evidence supported the claim. Ethan accepted the task without hesitation, eager to return to the stars. Preparations for the mission took several weeks. During that time, Ethan worked closely with the engineers, responsible for maintaining Erebus. Together, they reviewed the armor's systems, making improvements based on lessons learned from Delta 7. The AI was updated to better handle unexpected scenarios, and new safeguards were added to prevent future hacks. By the time Ethan stepped into the cockpit again, the armor felt different, not just physically but emotionally. It was familiar yet renewed, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and grow. When the mission finally launched, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. He didn't know what awaited him in the depths of space, but he was ready to face it. As the ship carrying Erebus left Earth's atmosphere, he gazed out the window at the planet below. It looked small from this distance, fragile even. Yet it was home to billions of people, each one capable of incredible things. The journey was uneventful at first. Ethan spent his days monitoring sensors and reviewing data, searching for signs of the reported activity. Days turned into weeks, and still, nothing appeared. Just as he began to wonder if the mission was a waste of time, the ship's scanners picked up something unusual, a derelict station drifting in the void. Ethan suited up in Erebus and ventured outside to investigate. The station was old and battered, its hull scarred by micrometeorites and radiation. As he approached, he noticed faint lights flickering inside. Someone, or something, was alive inside. Cautiously, Ethan entered the station. His footsteps echoed through empty corridors as he searched for signs of life. Finally, he reached a central chamber where he found a figure sitting at a console. It was a woman, her back turned to him. She wore simple clothing and had short brown hair. "Lily?" Ethan asked, his voice soft. The woman turned slowly, revealing familiar green eyes. "Ethan," she said, her tone calm but tinged with surprise. "I didn't think you'd find me here." "What are you doing?" Ethan asked, stepping closer. "Are you behind the reports?" Lily shook her head. "No. I've been hiding, trying to stay out of sight. This place, it's quiet, safe." Ethan studied her, noting the weariness in her expression. She looked older than he remembered, her sharp features softened by time. "Why are you here, Lily?" he asked gently. "What are you running from?" "From myself, maybe," she admitted. "I thought I could change things, make people see the truth. But all I did was cause pain and destruction. Maybe I was wrong." "You weren't entirely wrong," Ethan said. "You made us think. You made us question our dependence on machines. That's important." Lily smiled faintly. "But at what cost? Lives were lost because of me. People suffered. And they'll keep suffering if we don't learn from our mistakes," Ethan replied. "Your actions started a conversation, Lily. Now it's up to us to finish it." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lily stood, walking toward Ethan. "Maybe you're right," she said. "Maybe it's time I stopped running." Ethan extended his hand. "Come with me. Help us build a better future." Lily hesitated, then nodded. Together they returned to the ship, leaving the derelict station behind. As they traveled back to Earth, Ethan felt a sense of closure, not just for himself, but for humanity. The road ahead would be challenging, but it was one they would walk together. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt hopeful.